I am the Chief Operating Officer, and my day-to-day responsibilities are to make sure that the entire organization is running efficiently and smoothly, meaning I have to make sure that from the shelter to Vince's place to outpatient, intensive outpatient, and our permanent housing, that everything is efficient. We have what we need, we're staffed, we have the materials that we need, the clients are receiving the services that they're supposed to be receiving, just anything that comes in a day-to-day environment here.
When I first started, I started at the front desk. I started that, and then one morning the CEO had a project that she wanted done, and she selected me and 3 other people for a fab project to do reorganizing the 4th floor, and we did that, and they was proud of what we did, and we ended up from doing the 4th floor all the way down to the basement.
I do a little bit of everything around here. Wherever I'm needed, I'll volunteer to work because I love working. But my main one is working over the dock, unloading trucks, dealing with the trash compactor, sorting clothes, moving furniture, helping customers out. That's my main one. Through this store, people can go down to social services, get vouchers for furniture if they're moving into a new place, or people can just come on a regular basis and buy furniture, clothing. We have a variety of clothing. And everything in that store has been fully donated. People call, schedule appointments for us to go pick up their household items, furniture, clothing. And then we bring it back here. As long as it's in good condition, we'll put it in the thrift store.
So we operate an emergency shelter. It opens at 4 p.m., closes at 8 a.m. It's open 365 days a year. We also operate a day center for the homeless, which opens at 8 a.m. and closes at 4 p.m. So on any given day, 24 hours a day, we could have homeless folks on facility.
We have the residential program, which is Vincent's Place, VINCE' place, and they are substance abuse disorders, and they come from parole, probation, ISP, and they're housed in that facility, residential, from anywhere from 90 days to 120 days.
It helps the community where I see a lot of hope and despair, and the Rescue Mission is big on making sure someone has shelter, food, not being caught out there in the elements, maybe possibly, dying from being, hypothermia, being froze, and help my way of living, with some, help the people who can't help themselves. Our mission statement says we're here to serve the needy, and those in need, those in the most need, we're here to serve, and I think it hits the nail right on the head. We serve, unfortunately, we serve a lot of clients and folks that most other people don't want to be associated with.
We service the population that is the least, the last, and the lost. The least amount of insured or underinsured population, unemployed or underemployed, if there's such a word. You may have a job where you're really paid less than the amount of money that you need to make it, or you're paid under the table. And there are those that are just lost. They've never really fit into the system properly, and they get lost along the way. And the last are the ones that nobody really wants.
We rebuild lives, and that they do. As long as, they give you all the tools you need, but you got to want to change. You got to want to rebuild your life. There's guys that come there and stay stagnant, or they come there and they don't want to change. They're there because they have to be there, and then you got guys that want to be there or need to be there, and that's where the difference is.
Anyone from any walk of life can suffer from addiction. I definitely believe it's a disease. It's a chemical imbalance in your brain, and any one of us can be born with that. It's just a matter of, do you ever let it all out? And a lot of people say, well, addictions, when you hear addiction, people think, now especially they think about, all the people using opiates or heroin, or an alcoholic. But there's many people who suffer from other addictions, gambling addiction. People are addicted to work. There's people work, workaholics. And it's a true essence, and that person has the same disease as a guy that's buying heroin on the street. They're just suffering from a different addiction. So to say that it's a product of anyone's exact environment, no, because you see it from the people who have the most money in the world all the way down to the guy that doesn't have anything.
It doesn't matter what color you are, what shape you are, tall, thin, fat, no teeth, hair on a bedpost at night, you're going to get some help.
The first time I came to the mission was through mutual agreement program of the state prison system, where I got paroled here. Basically, I was court mandated to come here for a total of 180 days. And I had to abide by the rules of parole, the rules of the program. If I didn't obey the rules, I would have gotten sent back to prison and would have had to do 2 more years. But there's a saying, fake it till you make it. And I did that, made it through parole, completed the program, completed parole. But like 2 weeks later, I wound up going out using drugs, smoking weed. And then I got hooked back up with a group of people I hung out with before I went into prison, and wound up going back to smoking crack.
I was on drug court. I was sentenced to drug court in 2012 in Hudson County, and I was on that. And then I was getting sanctions. Sanctions mean whereas though if you do something deemed against the rules, they would sanction you for as maybe 3 days, 4 days, or 5 days. And my sanction would be for drinking. You're not supposed to drink, and be for drinking. And on total, about 5 years, I had like 7 sanctions. And then the last part, when I got the last part, I had a little bit of time left, and they told me that I could finish my time up in the county jail or go to a program. And then after my girl and my children came to see me, and my kids see me through the glass, and they couldn't touch me, and they started crying and freaking out. That's when I realized that I'm going to a program.
Every time I went there was because I had no place else to go. Really, I had no place else to go. I didn't know if I thought in my heart that I was ready to get straight, ready to get sober, but I wasn't. I would go there to get a break, to get some time, to get either my girlfriend back, get a job back, have my parents talking to me again. I was going for somebody else. I was going for a reason other than accepting the fact that I was an alcoholic and an addict, because I didn't get it at the mission. I got the tools I needed. I got anger management groups and relapse prevention, and I knew the things I needed to know to get out and stay sober. But every time I left Vincent's place, I didn't take the suggestions. Go to a meeting, raise your hand, get a sponsor. I would work on me while I was there and work on the things that triggered me and made me click. But in the end, really for me, people talk about relapse triggers, you know, to go out there. For me, all I had to do was wake up in the morning and suck in a breath of air. That was enough. There was nothing that was a relapse trigger for me except breathing, you know, because I wasn't done. I wanted to go, go, go.
Before I got into this field, and before I got to where I am now, I was in the entertainment field. And drugs was everywhere. And at that time, it was just thought of as to be fun, having fun. You stay up all night and party, and you get up by afternoon and you do it all over again, and then, until you get caught up and you don't even realize it, that it's an addiction, that it's a sickness, it's a disease. So, took me, I'm going to say more than a couple of years. It took me some time before I realized and accepted the fact that I had an addiction. My first child, which is my son, brought me to that attention. And I realized, you know what? I can't do drugs and be a mother too. I just can't do both. So let me try to be a mother, because I've never done that before. And I went into rehab.
My home life was wonderful. I was the baby of 3 boys. I'm the baby and got 2 other brothers. My mother had 1 job in her life. Went to work for New Jersey Bell, straight out of high school after she graduated. My father, he was the register of the whole Hudson County of mortgages and deeds, and had a wonderful life. I was spoiled, got whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted it. You know, it was nice.
Oh, I had a wonderful home life. There's 3 girls. I'm the oldest. Come from a big family, though. Cousins and aunts and uncles and, you know, grandparents.
My upbringing was basically farm life, middle class type setting. My parents tried their best to raise me the best they could. Dad was always working 6 days a week. Mom was working when I'd get off school. Mom and Dad both be at work. Sister, she was involved in sports. I really didn't get involved in sports. I was hanging out with the group that would get high, try to fit in.
I moved around a lot as a kid. My mom and dad had separated very early, probably around when I was 5 or 6 years old. So with that happening, my mom was like a nomad. She didn't really want to stay very long at any place. And but Columbus, I always said, was my home because that's where my grandparents were from, and I would end up going back to Columbus all the time. You know, I'd get homesick for Columbus.
My mother is very energetic. She's 86 years old, and she has more energy than I do. But she's always been a community activist. She's been a leader and forthright in civil rights. She was the first African-American woman to have a job at the General Motors in the capacity as a supervisor. She's very, very into people's rights. My father is more low-key, and he has passed away since 2010. But he was a hard worker.
My father, he was always, you know, no matter what endeavor we was in, sports or whatever, you know, always, I can remember playing basketball, you know, in the gymnasium with thousands of people. I could always hear a whistle, and I know that was him, and he would always be in the stands in attendance, as well as my mother. Baseball, basketball, anything, they was always there.
Well, my mom had her own issues. You know, she after her and my dad split up, she ended up getting a boyfriend that she had the same guy for years. That was my little sister who died of a heroin overdose. It was her father. And you know, my mom, she was blind to a lot of stuff where he was. Like he was an addict too, and she was blind to that. You know, she seemed like she only wanted the best for us, but in her own sick way. You know what I mean? Just like I know she loved me in her own way. You know, but everybody's got a different definition of love. You know, for my mom, it was she'd give me anything I wanted when she had it. You know, take me anywhere I wanted to go when she could. You know, but you know, like I said, she was overbearing. She was eccentric, but in the end, she was my friend.
Mom she was the one that was always home throughout the night. She worked 9 to 5 at Hillwalk doing legal work. She was always the one I would call. If I got in trouble, first one to call was Mom. Didn't want to call Dad. And she tried being the best mom she could be for me, but I just wasn't open to it.
I experiment with everything. I mean, my drug of choice, I would say, is methamphetamine, speed.
We went to a Jimi Hendrix concert, and me and about 6 of my friends, and someone had cocaine. I can't remember who. That was a long time ago. And they were passing on, take a sniff of this, you'll really feel the beat of the music. I'm like, what? And it was white flaky stuff, and they were putting it in the nose. I said, okay. So we did, and we were up. I mean, you just speedy, you know, you very sensitive to sound and sight and taste, and you know, you was just into it. That was my first experience.
One of my sister's ex-boyfriends asked, did I want to try something? I'm like, sure. Once I tried the crack, it was off to the races with it.
I would drink about a half gallon of vodka a day, and I don't know, maybe 10 two first. If I was drinking at my house, which I did a lot, you know, but if it was a payday, I would go at the bar. But I was one of those people that could go to the bar and open the bar in the morning and close the bar at night, you know, and I would drink beer all day, and towards the end of the day, I would start drinking shots.
Cocaine and heroin. That's what I was selling, cocaine and heroin, at the particular time when I went to prison. Came home from that. Was out there maybe about 2 years. Caught another sales. Went to prison. Came home. And then I went back again about 2005 again. And I came back home 2008. Then I caught the heroin charge.
My friend was here, the guy that came out the alleyway. I never seen him, I didn't know him. You know, he just came out the alleyway with a hood. He looked suspicious. I'm like, what is he doing? And then he shot. You know, he shot one time, hit me in the leg. And then my friend that was on the roof returned fire. And we got away, but a month later, ultimately he was found dead, shot multiple times and found dead.
I've been in jail for a lot of disorderly conducts, lots and lots of disorderly conducts, couple burglaries, couple assaults. In Texas, I killed 3 people on drunk driving. Went to prison the first time for that. Got out, kept my cool for a little while, and then I forgot that alcohol was a direct result, that prison was a direct result of my alcohol drinking, and went back to that. Except when I went back to that, I thought that I had a right to carry guns. So I used to carry guns, and came back up here, had a friend that had a license to carry guns, so she could, we were living in Pennsylvania at that time, and every time I had extra money, which was a lot of times because of the job I had, I'd go get another gun. And I had to start a pistol collection, and I would come from Pennsylvania to Jersey, and I'd sit in a cop bar and drink all day with a gun on me. And thought I was okay with that. Driving around without a license, with a loaded gun, and eventually that caught up with me, and I went back to prison another time for that. For unlawful possession or a felony possession of a firearm, because I had a record and I was carrying a gun.
The breaking into houses was so I could go to the pawn shops, sell the stuff I get out of the houses for money to get drugs. The drugs, I could go around the people I was hanging out with, and eventually the cops wound up doing surveillance, and I wound up getting in trouble for it. There was other people involved, but I never brought them in. I always took the full consequence. It's just the type of person I was.
My grandmom lived in Texas at the time, and she was getting ready to move from one apartment to the next, and she asked me if I would help her move, and I was like, sure. She goes, I'll get a couple cases of beer. My grandmom on my mom's side, she drank at night, so we had a case of beer at the apartment we were moving her from, and a case of beer where we were moving her to, and I ended up getting my uncle's car without. At that time, I had a license under a fictitious name in Texas. I had a driver's license, but it was under a different name. So I got done work that morning. I picked up a friend, and we started moving furniture, and we start loading the truck. Now I just worked 10 hours all night. I'm tired, and I'm drinking. And we started moving about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, drinking one beer. We'd load the truck, get to the other house, unload it, drink a few more beers, and we did that all day long. And at the end of the day, she ended up paying us too. We left, and we went and sat in this biker bar that wasn't far from my house, Wizards. Can't believe I remembered that bar after 20-something years, but it was a bar right next to a tattoo shop. We walked in there, and it was Texas. It was hot. And I remember walking in and sitting down in the air conditioner and in the air conditioning and ordering a pitcher of beer, and poured the beer, and I took a couple sips, and like all the alcohol that hit me, that I drank all day, started to hit me. And I said to Ron, who was with me, I said, if I have to drive you home, I said, we need to leave now. I said, because I'm not going to make it. I said, I'm that tired, man. And I was feeling the alcohol. And so we got in the truck, and we were in El Paso, Texas, and I remember driving him all the way from northeast to the west side, which is all around the mountain. And it's mountain roads like this. And I took the truck, and I remember getting my uncle's Camaro. And I picked that Camaro up, and I was driving home, and I made it all the way around the mountains. And I was about a mile from my house, and I was coming down this road that went like this. And I got to the top of this hill coming down, and I fell asleep, or passed out. But when I fell asleep, I came to the end of the hill, and these three women were coming this way, and I broadsided them. And there was three women in their 70s, and the car spun. Their car spun. And I remember one, the doors flew open. One flew down the road so far that all the skin came off her body and she couldn't be identified. The other one, I think her neck broke on the spot. And the other one made it to the hospital and died. And I woke up in the hospital hours later, and my tire, I hit this car so hard there was a tire iron on my back seat, came through the seat into my back. And this leg hit the brake release lever and went into my kneecap like a fish hook. So when I came to, my knee was wide open, and I didn't know anything that happened. And I was like calling for the nurse, and the nurse came in, and she goes, you don't know what happened? And I said, no. She goes, you don't know what you did? And I said, no. She goes, you killed three women, drunk driving. And I said, they came in, I said, get me stitched up. Can you get me a phone? I called my son's mother, and she's like, where the fuck are you, you fucking asshole? You know, you never came home. And I told her, I said, have you been, watching TV or anything? And she's like, where are you? I said, look, I am in the hospital. I said, can you come get me? And she came and picked me up with a friend of hers, and I went home. All the medication was wearing off. Then I saw this on the news. I saw what happened on the news, and started looking for a lawyer. So I got real scared. I got real scared. It was a real wake-up call, and I think I made it. I made it a while. I stayed sober for a while, but you know what? Closer it got to court, I started drinking again. Because I was scared, and that eased what was going on inside of me. I started drinking again. I wasn't driving, of course, but that's pretty much how that went down. I went in, they came at me, and at that time in Texas, it was 2 to 10 years for involuntary manslaughter, which is what I was charged with. I had 3 counts. The lawyer said because it all happened at one time, they had to run it concurrent. They couldn't run it consecutively. They came at me with 10 years. They were offering me the max. I took it to a jury for the time to let them decide. I was pleading guilty, but I was taken to a jury to get the time sent. So they sentenced me to 6.5 years for each one, and I ended up doing the whole 6.5 years.
The lowest part of my life is when I was getting sentenced to go to prison, and I look back, my family was there. The look on their face, that really, was a low point for me. That I'd be going hurt. That was a very hurting feeling. Very.
Looking for a job, had no job, was looking for one, and I started using cocaine again. I started smoking. I was introduced to smoking cocaine. They called it freebase then, they didn't call it crack. And it got so bad for the next 3 years of me smoking this freebasing. My son, who was at the time 3 years old, looked at me and told me, in his own baby talk, what's wrong with your face? Why do you always play in the bathroom? Because they would go in the bathroom and smoke. Why do you always play in the bathroom? And what? Oh, you don't look right. And that was it. That was my bottom.
September 8th of 2016, where I was under an overpass, had no money. Family didn't want anything to do with me. I just felt like saying goodbye to life.
The lowest point was hearing those bar doors slam behind me. That time. The first time. Of the many times, many times I've heard those doors slam behind me, in this career of drinking and drugging. I've heard those doors slam thousands of times. But that first time was like, this is where this led me to. This is where my drinking led me to. This is my life. That was pretty low. But then I've slept in the shelter where I work. That was pretty low. Because that's where my drinking took me to years later. Or being in rehabs and hospitals for overdosing. But that I was young. I was 21 years old the first time I went to prison. I wasn't 21 years old the first time I got locked up, but I was 21 years old the first time I went to prison. And those doors slamming was probably the lowest I ever felt.
As you come to a place like this and you start seeing things with clarity, things change. And sometimes you have to embrace change. And embracing change is difficult for some people. Because if you're so used to doing something for so long, doing something else is foreign to you. So you have to, you have to give yourself a chance. But when you come to realize that what you've been doing for so long has given you opportunities as far as prison and places like this, I think you need to change your thinking.
I now realize all the damage I've done to myself, damage I've done to my family, damage I've done to families' friendships. I'm actually enjoying life like I used to before I turned 11. My relationship with my dad is a lot stronger than it had been previously. Between the age of 11 and 30, I was just doing what I wanted to. And like I told the governor, I was like, the only person I really cared about was the drugs. I didn't care about it myself or anybody around me. I was being totally selfish. Didn't want to admit that I had a problem.
To do recovery, you have to really want it. I don't care what kind of program you go, how high class it is or how low class it is, how much money you spend or how less money you spend. If you don't want recovery, you won't get it. But if you do want it and you're persistent and stay focused and committed to it, you can get recovered.
My road to recovery, this place has really made me open my mind. It made me see things for what they are. And it also made me be able to think outside the box. Because every action is a reaction. And today, I'm more of a thinker than a reactor. I wasn't always that way. I was a reactor first, then think afterwards.
I was committed to getting recovery. So I was going to do whatever they said I had needed to do to get it. So now basically, take the good with the bad and what didn't taste good and what did taste good along with it.
I started going to a lot of meetings. I got a sponsor. I got a home group. And I started a new network around me of sober people. That's what I started doing. That was completely different than what I had been doing for years.
It just took me, it took me longer than it might took somebody else. Somebody might have got it on the first try. It took me 3. You know what I mean? When they say third time's a charm. But I got it. I got it, and I'm just waiting to leave here and just step up to my greatness, man. Just be for all of my kids, go back to work at the store, and step up to my greatness.
I didn't want to stay on drugs. I didn't want my son to not love me. I didn't want to be looked upon as another non-citizen producing a positive life. No. I didn't go to school to do all that, just to do that.
The real work is gonna start when I leave the mission. This is just a temporary setting. When I get out, the NA program is what's gonna help me keep on the right track. Not only that, but also myself. As long as I stay in the right mindset, I'll have nothing to worry about. Yeah, there'll be problems throughout life, but it's how you deal with them. Can't just run to the drugs or alcohol, because once you sober up, it's still gonna be there regardless.
I miss my children. That's how I really miss my children. I miss my moms, I miss my pops, you know, just missing people, you know, that's about it. But as far as struggle, the struggle was over. The struggle was over. So I just want to and like I said, my father's 78, my mother's 76. I just want to get out there and just continue on being in their life and enjoy them for the rest of the time that I have with them. That's all I want to do. Just be there for them, because they've solely been there for me all my life. And I just want to give it to them in return.
My problems today are privilege problems. You know, I just had to put new struts on my car because I have a car, because I have a license, and I have a job to pay for the struts.
I'm really not struggling with anything. It's more anxious to get back out there and start living my life again.
Our shelter loses about $400,000 a year when operating it, when you take in the revenue and you take in the expenses of running it. And you know, you look at that, and most people would say, you know, who run businesses would say, well, why do you operate something that loses that much money every year? And for us, it's a very easy question to answer. That's our mission. That's what we're founded on. We were founded to operating a shelter. The board, we have a great board here at the mission. They would never, ever say, we're going to close the shelter. You know, you can't do it. You know, you close the shelter, what are you going to do? Where are these folks going to go? A lot of these people rely on us for, you know, shelter, clothing, food. So, you know, we're tough. We're faced with a very tough obstacle of how do you fund the shelter. We used to receive from the Board of Social Services emergency assistance dollars, known you know in the industry as EA dollars. A couple years ago, they reinterpreted the definition of what emergency assistance dollars looked like and where they came from, and we lost all of that. We used to get over $100,000 a year. We get zero now. You know, and some other things, we've lost some funding, you know, in different areas. And the mission has always, you know, taken our revenue that we made in our store and put it back into right back into the emergency shelter, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. You know, you have an entity that makes a profit. You turn around and put it into the other side that doesn't make a profit. You know, that's you know what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to, you know, like I said, we're supposed to provide that service. We're supposed to provide a shelter. With that said, there's not always an easy answer to finding different funding for a shelter. You know, a lot of people, you know, don't always want to say, you know, emergency shelter is something I want to fund. We were very fortunate in September. We held a forum on the shelter and how we were losing money, and a lot of community partners, a lot of foundations attended that forum, and we received a lot of financial backing out of that. It was a beautiful thing to see how the community came together to say, you know what, the mission does a really, really solid service providing this to the shelter, to these homeless clients, and we want to support that.